So when you go to calibrate it, basically I'm going to turn all my hinges off, except for the one I want to run. I'm going to go into the calibration, and that's where you're going to run. Then you're going to hit the start button and run that. So now, as you can see here, we have the bigger one, which is the main router. Then we have the counter rotate in here, and then we have our pre-drill. So as you can see, they're off. So I can come in and you can measure the bit diameter there and there. It's a little harder to tell with it being off, but you can get a rough estimate. And then basically this should be centered in the door, so that there to where it should be there, it's off about 1/4 inch. And the pre-drill, it's off about 1/8 of an inch. And then you can see there's basically nothing there, and that's there, so that's off by about 1/8 of an inch to center that up. So I'm going to go in and just change that and get everything centered there, and then we can worry about its location. So we see that the counter rotate and the pre-drill were off from the standard router. That's what you want to calibrate first. So I'm going to come in, this I said was off by about 1/4, so I'm going to go 0.25 minus, and we said the pre-drill was off by about 1/8, so 0.125 minus, and then they were both off on the y-axis. They were off by about 1/8, so I'm going to go 1/8 inch, 0.125 minus it to move it down, and then the y, so I'm going to go 0.125 minus. So now that's going to zero it. So now we'll do the next cut and we'll see if they're all centered up within each other. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to skip that one and we're going to cut it on number 2 and we will see where we're at. Okay, so now as you can see here, we got it pretty much in the center. So now you can actually measure your bit diameter fairly cleanly on both of them. And we can measure what we got over here. And that should be centered with there. And top and bottom, we look good. Got here versus here. And then what we got here versus here. So now we look all good there. So what we need to check is we want to be 2 5/8 from the H block over here. So it looks like we're off probably about 1/2 inch. So now I'm going to move that over 1/2 inch. And then now this guy is definitely not centered here. So we need to move the 3-degree overall offset. So we got to adjust that, and then I think we're going to be pretty darn good there. So now we're going to center it within the H block. So it's off by about 1/2 inch. And from the H block over, we want it 2 5/8. So now I'm going to come in here. So now this is the overall hinge head. Oh, and then the X, because we got the 3-degree was off also. So we got to change the Y on that. So we're going to come up here to the X overall, and I'm going to do 0.5 minus. We were off about 1/2 inch, so that's going to kick it over. And then we were in 3-degree, so the Y was off on that. So I'm going to add 1/8 inch to that. So now that we'll run and see. So you have to do them separate for the Y and the Z, for 0-degree and 3-degree for the overall. So that's your 3-degree overall, and that's your 0 overall. We were in 3, so that's why I just changed the 3. So now I'll go back here. I'm going to skip that one. We're going to run that on the 3rd. We go ahead and continue to run the same thing, and we'll see where we're at. Okay, so now as you can see, since we got them all centered within each other, now I moved the 3-degree offset Y. So now, if you look there, that's centered within the door. And then also I did the X movement. So now we're at that 2 5/8 there, which so then should be 2 5/8 there. So that's where we should be. So now we're centered within the H block so we can do the different size hinges. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and run the chisels. So we're gonna turn that, the center one on. I'm gonna change it to standard. We have to turn the chisels on, you wanna throw a 0 in the radius. That is gonna say that there's no radius, so then it's gonna run the chisels. So we'll go ahead and run that and see where we're at. So now that I put in 0 for my radius, it's gonna go ahead and do the corner chiseling. And so I'm checking the calibration on that. So as I can see, my right side lower is here. It's a little high. It looks like it's pretty good on its x-axis, so the Y is a little high. And the Y looks like it's good on the X, but the Y is off, or I'm sorry, it's good on the Y, but the X is off a little bit. So I got to move both of those down and over a little bit. So this is my my right lower, my left upper, and my right upper will be in the jam. So now that we do that, we have to adjust the chisel a little bit. So I'm going to come into setup, and you're going to go to chisels and carriage. So now our lower left was off a little bit, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do, it was off by about 1/8. And then the Y was off about 1/8 also. Okay, so now I adjusted both those. It was off about 1/8. So now we looks pretty darn good for both squares. There's not a big lip or anything like that. Take a hinge and put it in there and fit it, but that's how you calibrate the chisels. And it'd be the exact same thing for the uppers, which would be in the jam side. If you're measuring from the in-feed doorstop, which would be the right hand, you measure your hinges, the top down. If those are off, so that's going to be your hinge carriage location, will adjust all of your hinges on that. And once you adjust that, you have to do that one first, your right hand in-feed stop. And then once that's adjusted, then when you do your left hand, if something is off on your left hand, then that will be your outfeed doorstop calibration, will adjust that. And that'll be to there. So that's how you adjust either your in-feed or outfeed hinge location. So here's the hinge carriage location. So that's where if you're going to go off of the in-feed fixed doorstop, you need to adjust your your hinge locations. That's going to be right there. And once you got that, you have to do that one first. And then once that's adjusted, when you do your left hand, which is the outfeed movable doorstop, we're going to have to calibrate that from there. But you have to do the fixed one, the hinge carriage location first before you do the outfeed stop. Otherwise, once you go and change your hinge carriage location, you'll screw up the other one. So now you have the basics on how to calibrate your Commander. If you have any further questions or problems, you can see the manual. The manual has a pretty good description in there, or you can give us a call at 1-800-553-5825.